Hello, mgtows. Hello, man. Just thought I'd do a little impromptu video on something I see a lot in society, and something I'm generally very aware of because I generally worked in the institution for a long while. So I'll give it a time, knowing that YouTube takes a while to send out these things, and this is the only way I prefer to do. I prefer to do my podcast anymore, and then whether I get any response or not, I don't know. That's up to YouTube, I suppose. So, good morning, men. Go your own way. All your Simpsons are forgiven. Uh, let's talk about part of the problem. Sometimes in life, we look at things and there seems to be an obvious answer to the question. And what I'm talking about is we're going to do two parts of this. One's going to be a MGTOW part, and one's going to be about a general problem in our society, which is homelessness. And homelessness is a general problem, and men's rights too. It's a big problem. It's what we talk about in men's rights. And I worked in homelessness for a while, but when I look around society, and I go to the other pages, and I go to the news pages, and the big pundits, they get the TYTs and the Tom Hartmans and the Steinmans and the Sam Cedars and the all the variety of right guys and left guys that are arguing these problems out. Most of the time, they'll start arguing homelessness at one point, and both of them take a different view on homelessness. And someone will say, certain things about homeless people. And I worked in homelessness for a while, so I know homeless. And we did interviews in homelessness. Hello, a boy named Gilroy. So we did a lot of interviews, and what we do is, and when you're working in homelessness, when you get your grants, you get your houses, and you get your apartments, and then you have to conform to what they want. Uh, the grantors, and the grantors are usually the United States government or rich people and granting, but they want something, and they want to generate something. And it all forms under a certain. We get our money where we get our money. Now, homelessness. When I look at homelessness being discussed on YouTube, the first thing that people say is all these homeless men or all these homeless people are on drugs and alcohol, and they got mental health problems. The statistics say it, and I wanted to talk about that. That's where I'm going to lead down to being part of the problem. It's an assume that all these people are on. All these people are just drugs. They're on drugs and they're on alcohol, and they're and there's mental health problems assumed. But with every person I've ever interviewed, and I will say that the last house that we had 36 men in it. There was one guy that was mentally ill. There was a lot of guys that like to go out and have a beer once in a while, which I wouldn't qualify for alcoholics. There was maybe one alcoholic. But if you look at the statistics of what we had to do, you have to ask your question, where do we get our funding? Where do we get the funding for the house, to put the house together? Where do I get the funding to pay me? Where do I get the funding to pay a psychologist? Where do I get this funding to pay somebody with an A1 accreditations to run this thing? When I put these things together, I have to get the funding somewhere, and I have to write a grant. How do I write the grant? There's only certain ways. Come back. Thank you. I have to write it in the language that I will know I'll get the grant. Where do I get the grant money from? Well, I get the grant money from alcohol and what we call ODAS here, and I get the money from what we call mental health providers. And then the money comes through them, they come through us, if I say the right words. But what this does in America, especially in America, is every one of those guys out in the street know a certain thing. They may not have mental health problems, and they may not be alcoholics or drug users, but to get in a room inside of my house, you know what you have to say you are? because I get my funding that way. If I don't show that at least 70% of those guys are alcoholics on drugs, so we basically tell them so we can get the funding so they can have a room to live in, to say that you're an alcoholic, you have mental health problems, or you're on drugs. And then we will provide you with simple services that are cognitive health services, which is basically we set up an AA room in the basement, and once a week they go talk, and they talk about things, a lot of things. And I've never went to one of the I've never went to one of the AA meetings because it's anonymity, so I couldn't go to one of the meetings and observe them. But they really probably don't even talk about AA because each one of those guys know that they have to tell a lie to get the room. And the lie that they have to tell a lie is to help me and the people that worked in that agency get the funding so we can get the house so they have somewhere to live. Now, this is being part of the problem in America. When I look out over America now, and I look at the pundits, and I look at the people that are talking about homelessness now, I see them coming from a premise that is a lie. And I see why it's a lie, because every homeless guy out there knows that he has to say certain things to get the room. So they go, oh, how can we get, and then you know who gets the funding then from the United States government? The healthcare system. Health and Human Services gets the funding, and then mental health gets the funding. Drug addiction, ODAS gets the funding. Them are through, so the funding goes back to the government agencies, so it can go back to the government, and it's a recipient. It never goes out into the public, and it never makes its way to these guys that really need it. And it's a big lie, and somebody's got to start telling the truth about these certain lies and it's why I don't do that no more, because it was like living in a freaking hypocrisy, in a world of hypocrisy. Now, when I do the GIPRA and I would do the information, I would sit there and say, hey, I got to do this, and you got to say certain things. And I'd be like, you got to say certain things or else I can't give you a room. And I see it as a shaming tactic too. We get into MGTOW, we do this. We talk about shaming tactics. If these guys don't say that they're drug or alcohol, and it becomes an easy excuse for the public, it becomes and it further multiplies the problem, because it becomes an easy excuse for the cure to homelessness. The cure to homelessness is build enough housing, free housing for people to live in and house them. If you don't want people homeless, you house them. That money never makes it to housing. You know where that money makes it to? That money makes it back to HUD. And HUD's a big part of this too. That money goes back to the government. The government picks their special friends to invest in the HUD program, and then billionaires make billions of dollars. This is how Donald Trump's father made his billions. Doing that right there, providing housing, low-cost housing to people because he was specially picked by people in the government. And that money never generally makes it back out into the public. It always goes back into the system. It always goes back into the system, and they know how the system works. It's a circular system where the money has to come back into it. And then that's what this does. Every dime they spend on homelessness goes back into government agencies, back into the system, so they can pay people in the government, and people get paid like I used to. But I can no longer live with the hypocrisy of the system. You can ask if God bless his soul, Silverman was still alive and he didn't hang himself over this thing. You can ask him how the system works, and he would tell you exactly what I just told you, that if these guys don't say that they're on drugs or alcohol or have mental issues, and even though they don't, and I interviewed hundreds of them, and I knew that most of them didn't, that they would not get no funding. We could not get no funding, and they couldn't have a room, and they would let them wander around out there for whatever specific reason. I don't really care what specific reason it was. The problem is they were homeless We need to house them, so we need houses. It's a triangle. It goes like all things do. It's a triangle, and you simplify it by going from A to B. The fastest way from A to B is a straight line. So it's a big lie, and it's generated in our public. And when I hear these so-called pundits like the Young Turks and Tom Hartman and those guys, and they start talking about homelessness, the first thing they utter out of their lips is, "Oh, those guys are on drugs." No, they're not. No, they're not. Did you ever work in the system? Do you know how it works? And that's the biggest lie. So when you echo those lies, of course, who's going to get the funding? It won't be the homeless people. It'll be the healthcare people. And that's the biggest fucking lie ever. The healthcare people know that most of those homeless people aren't on drugs and alcohol and don't have mental, but they'll run them through all of their programs and get more money. And it becomes a big freaking money pit. And it's the biggest lie in America. It's almost $1 trillion lie. You know what the cure, you know what the hypocrisy of this is? You know what the cure for homelessness in America is? $50 billion. $50 billion. That's 1/7 of what we paid for our military budget. 1/7. It's not even as much as Veterans Affairs. Veterans Affairs makes 20, 30 times that amount. It's a lie. And like you said, it may be a lie proposed on men because the men that end up homeless don't believe in this system. And that's the biggest thing that I found out, that most of those guys had over 2-year educations. And I would say we looked at it one day and we were shocked. We were like, most of these guys have over 2 years of education, and a lot of them were engineers, and a lot of them were, we had dentists, we had engineers, we had healthcare workers that weren't allowed to practice anymore because they had their licenses taken because for some reason, because they weren't abiding by the codes or something like that, and they ended up homeless. There's a lot of guys. We had philosophers. We had a school teacher that taught at college level for many years that ended up homeless. And the real problem is they no longer believe in the system because the system is absurd, because they see the same thing. They can look on my face when I'm doing this and they see that I notice the hypocrisy in our fucking programs. I noticed the hypocrisy in this liberal. I don't even know if it's liberal in this. It's both sides. It's both parties grabbing at money in this system, but it never makes it to the people that really truly need it. The poor will never get the money because Health and Human Services eats 3/4 of it. In 1972, two things happened. No-fault divorce happened, and Health and Human Services was on its way out. Health and Human Services was on its way out in 1972 because the poverty rate had dropped to the lowest point ever. And you can't have Health and Human Service, so what do? So what do is they make no-fault divorce, and they make all these other programs that generate poverty. Divorce generates poverty for men and women. Every time someone gets separated, it generates poverty. Everything busts apart. That whole union that was in that family, it breaks apart and it generates poverty. And both those people probably end up in one side of the system or the other side of the system. So fat ass people that have lighter than air jobs can sit on their ass at Health and Human Services and do nothing and collect $100,000 a year in salary, which is really pretty much in this day and age. In this day and age, you can take all those jobs, you can get a tech, and you can put a computer in the library, which there are a lot of computers. You can hook them up. You can have general forms and get rid of the humans in this thing. And then you can just sign up for healthy. If you fall below $24,000 and you have 2 kids in America, you deserve some kind of support from the Americans. You put that in. You link your social security number to it, and then it boom magically goes to a computer which figures out whether you're eligible, and then they send you and then that saves us from having to go down to those buildings and deal with human elements that are flawed and only think about themselves. Now that was the first part of my podcast, and the first part of the podcast is about part of the problem. The United States government makes more homeless people than any other drug and alcohol, any drugs and alcohol and mental illness combined. They make more homelessness than disability. They make more homelessness. The United States government and a lack of housing and its greedy little feudalistic measures and deals that they made with real estate and wealthy people in this country in a feudalistic way makes more homelessness than all of those other problems put together. And they make money off of it, and they continue to make money off of it, and it's at your expense, MGTOW. Every time you see a homeless guy or a homeless MGTOW or in something we believe that should be fixed in this world, it's at your expense, and it's through a lie, and there's through a lot of lies. Just if Earl Silverman, like I said, was still alive, he would tell you, man, you got to lie your ass off to get a grant. You got to say everything they want you to say, and then you got to do everything they want you to do. And what they want you to do is make every one of those men into substandard humans. And they're not. Some of the best people I've ever, some of the interesting conversations I've ever had were with some of the clients. And why they do it, there's a lot of reasons. Most of the time they're veterans. They don't believe in our society anymore. They don't believe that they don't believe in the way things work, and they echo the same sentiments I said about a feudalistic system that forces them to pay rich people money to live in their house. And then we have to pay the state people money to live in your house, even though you own your house. Lock, stock, and barrel. There's no value to it after that. They covet your house. They make you pay money on it, and they will foreclose if you don't pay them, so they can sit on their fat asses in the government agencies that we have way too many of. And it's a feudalistic system. So most people don't see that. They bite and they buy into the first. All those homeless people are drug and alcohol. Let's follow them around. Let's see if they get a beer. Of course they might want a beer. Every dude in the world wants a beer. It doesn't make them an alcoholic. Jesus Christ. And if they do get a beer, I would say, good for you. You deserve it. And I'd like to buy you another. But we see this part of the problem. Don't become part of the problem. I see this in MGTOW too. MGTOW's falling for this party. You're becoming part of the problem. And I was thinking today, maybe I have to start labeling myself trans feminist because I look around MGTOW and then I see all the beggars, and I see the PUAs, and I see the constant talk about how they want to hit it and quit it, how they want to do that. You know what that makes MGTOW? That makes MGTOW just what feminism says they are. It makes you into what they say you are. And that's one of my biggest complaints with MGTOW, because they seem to not have any etiquette. 9 out of 10 videos that I hear is just begging. It's just that pee begging for that split fee. And they look like simps, and they look like beggars, and they look like clowns. Now we have a major exodus lately from MGTOW for that reason, because I hate looking hypocritical. I won't do the job that I'm supposed to be doing in this world because I don't want to look hypocritical. Because I hate hypocrisy. Now MGTOW's become, and these boys that are around, you say, hey man, the feminists say that you're all a bunch of rapists and a bunch of you objectify them, and all you're thinking about is that down there. And they'll say, no, we're not. And then the first word out of their mouth in the same sentence will be, man, I'm just going to hit that and quit it and punish her. Really? What a bunch of morons. What a bunch of morons. We were sitting in and it was this new crowd that came around. They wonder why people see them as hypocritical. Take a step back and look at that. Take a step at that new crowd that just went all through the drama, and people see them as hypocritical. Why do people see them as hypocritical? Because it's about what I just said. It's about don't become what they say you are. It's about being a hypocrite. Now, MGTOW Monk was formed for one reason. That's so we don't become hypocritical. I don't catcall. I don't beg for women's attention. I don't ask for validation. I don't even do those things. If you ask me if I do those things, I will tell you it's none of your business, and I will never ask you. It's about becoming a man above reproach, and a man above reproach is often echoed from these idiots about other things. It's about not being hypocritical to the people that are accusing you of stuff. Me Too is around for a good reason, because we have we have 3/4 of our very own institution of MGTOW that are those rapists, that are those guys that are only thinking with that down there. And then they'll hypocritically say to the feminists, don't be a whore. Don't ride the sea carousel. You know what they're saying when they do that? I hear Sandman say that once in every video. Don't ride the sea carousel. I got him. Fry. Don't ride the sea carousel while he's talking about hitting a plastic doll and what he wants to do to the girls. What hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy will kill MGTOW. And I know most of these idiots don't understand that. They're just thinking with their desire. They can't put that away. They can't do the inspection. They can't do the sweep their side of the street, because those things would tell on themselves. Those things would say, oh man, I was a simp. Man, I was a beggar. Man, I was that cat caller. I was everything they said I was. Stop being everything they say you are. And that's what this is for. You're forgiven. Move on. Don't do those things no more. Don't become that obnoxious objectifier of women. And they're right. And feminism is right. Don't make them right. But that's what I see in men's rights. That's what I see in religion. That's what I see in MGTOW. There's a bunch of men that say, oh man, it's natural that I want to just do that all the time. No, it's not. And it's so easy to put away. It's so easy to put away. When I'm working on my car, I'm not thinking about that. Why I'm not thinking about that? Because the default state of a male is not thinking about that. The default state of a male is not thinking about them things. You're working on a car, you're getting something done. You're going to work, you're getting something done. While you're at work, you shouldn't be thinking about those things, or you will become exactly what they say you are if you are thinking about those things. Because I've seen those guys around works and at work areas, and nobody wants them around because they fuck things up. They're hounding the girls and they're becoming everything. And then I got to hear from the other side, oh man, we ain't what you say we are. You know what? Me Too is here for a reason, because of all those guys that can't not think about it while they're fixing their car. The default setting for a male is not thinking about it. But we live in a society where over-sexualized, where it's on every fence pole, where it's on every sign, it's on every bus that drives, it's on every magazine. And then they ask why men think about that all the time. They ask why men are over-sexualized. They ask why we have a bunch of IED males running around that pop off, that can't control themselves, that are violent. And then that's the other side of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy feeds itself. It eats on each other. We have all this hypocrisy over here, and it feeds on off the hypocrisy over there. Just don't be that thing. And it's so easy. It's be a MGTOW monk. It's don't be that thing. And that's what we promote. And I'm almost insulted by the idea that I have to explain this to men. I'm almost insulted that I have to talk about it because it feels creepy when I talk about it. It feels creepy when I say, don't be what they say you are. Because then I actually have to talk about it. And it's something I always thought was understood by men. You want to talk about masculinity? That's one thing that's understood. I don't talk about it. I don't tell about it. And I don't let people ask me about it. And it's none of nobody's business. And Trudeau's father was right. We got to get the government out of our bedrooms. But that will take real men to do that. And become real masculine men again. And masculinity doesn't hinge on a lot of things. Masculinity is a mental state. So that was the idea of this video. We see it out in public. We see people hypocritical things in public when they say hypocritical things about homeless men, when they say hypocritical things. And there's reasons why those things exist. But unless you're a second step thinker and you're willing to delve into what the problem really is, and that's only about 10% of males in society that have enough mental capacity to do that. That's what monk's about. That's what MGTOW monk's about, is doing the second step thinking. It's about, well, maybe I am what they say I am. I have to do this introspection in me. I have to become a monk. And with that, there will be celibacy, or at least the illusion of celibacy. Because whether I am or whether I'm not, I will never tell you about it. And I will get insulted if you ask me. Today I took one of those political surveys, and they're asking me questions about my financial status, my sexuality, and everything. And she got to the point where she starts asking me questions. I says to the lady on this political, it was for the state of Ohio, since I belong to political things and healthcare and everything. They were going and it was a health and human service thing that they're doing a survey in our area. So and she says, if we want to talk about intimate partner relationship, and I says, I'm a monk. And then she didn't understand. I says, there is no intimate partner relationship. There is I'm what's called Group X. That's what the traversable MGTOW sign up there says, Group X. I'm a part of Group X. I'm a monk. And I says, okay, let's do this. And I'll let you sexually harass me. And she didn't understand that either. I says, when you start asking people about those things and they are of Group X, you're sexually harassing them. She didn't understand that. I was a terrible interviewee. She probably never met nobody like me in her life, but it started me bringing up questions about certain things. And then I had another little incident that in my life. Remember those old Obama phones? Remember the Obama phone? They still have a sort of Obama phone. They're emergency contact phones for people that are most severely disabled, so they can and T-Mobile does these things in my area, my general area. And then next couple of days, I have to pay my phone bill. So I'm going to pay my phone bill. And I looked up and it had this message on there. And I said, man, I remember seeing that message. One of my buddies had an Obama phone because he got cut in half in a motorcycle accident. And they sewed him back together and they gave him pins all over his body, but he was disabled. So they gave him an Obama phone And I thought the hypocrisy of the Obama phone was glaring. Uh, they gave him so many minutes and they gave him this, and but after that there was a deal with T-Mobile for the phone service, and then they would send him this message, and he would get pissed off at the message, and he said this free program is going through this company, and this company sending a mess. If you pay, and it was the same thing, if you pay before your date, you will not get terminated. And that's such a logical question, and it's such an insult to people like that. It was insulting. And there's bigger questions about why T-Mobile was doing this, because and how they got the contract through the government to do this, and where all that money went, where they for the Obama phone program went back to rich people so they could send messages to the guy that was cut in half in a motorcycle accident saying that you better pay your fucking bill on time or they're going to shut the damn phone off. And it became hypocrisy. It became pure hypocrisy. I wanted to rip someone's head off after that. I wanted to go down there and shut that company down. And that's what America has become. 100% pure hypocrisy of corporations that have greedy deals with government agencies, and they all feed off of each other and pay each other. And we got to do something about one or both of them, because that is what's called a syndicate. And that's what I tried to explain the other day, the meaning of syndicate. That's what's called a syndicate. And they'll blame the union people for setting up what they call a syndicate, but them living under the same hypocrisy of the same kind of syndicate is okay because they can't see it. They can't visualize it. No one's ever articulated it for them. No one's ever told them. But that goes back to Joe's paradox. Greedy people don't like to be called greedy people. Simps don't like to be called simps. Bad cops don't like to be called bad cops. You ever call a bad cop, he gets infuriated. He has a fucking panic attack. Corrupt people and corrupt governments don't like to be called corrupt because it shines a light on them. And that's Joe's paradox about this world. And yes, I named it after myself because I'm the greatest thing that ever fucking walked on this world. I'm a mgtow. And that's how you got to start thinking about yourself. Be above all the hypocrisy. And when you see these half PUA halflings running around mgtow, making asses out of themselves and being exactly what the feminists accuse them of being, you rise above it. You become the mgtow. You sit back and you laugh. And you know that you're better than every other creature that walked on this planet. You're the apex male on this planet. And that takes a lot. And you're better. And like I said, that goes both ways. I know when someone's better than me. But it's hard for the rest of these people to realize that we are better than them. So I just started coming on. I just wanted to come on and say hello and do a video, and I don't want to make it too long because there's a lot to digest in here. But the thing is, don't be a hypocrite. Don't be one of these beggars. Every time I look at MGTOW now, 7 out of 10 videos, and I've counted this last week, were about men begging about how they can't get it and how they're going to PUA it, how they're going to go out and hit it and quit it. In that, you are just what the feminists say you are, and you shame us all. And we've seen this last group come around, and they shamed us all again. And they're not monks. They're hypocritical asswads calling themselves monks, defaming us, this institution that we built on reasonable intellectual men that were better than the rest of this world, that didn't want to live in hypocrisy. And we get attacked a lot from day one I mean, Sandman came after us. You monks, you monks. Yeah, I'll claim that because a monk's a pretty damn good thing. But in that same vein, will they claim being beggars? Will they claim being simps? No. They're the walking hypocrisy that makes us all look terrible. And you wonder why MGTOW is downward trending because the rest of the world sees the hypocrisy. It's so easy to see hypocrisy. Don't be what they say you are. And that's all I got to say. And basically, I'm going to go take a bike ride. I took a bike ride earlier this morning, loosened up my knee, did the 22 minutes that they suggest every day. It was fun as F. And now I'm going to go do one in the park just for myself. And I'm going to be happy because I vented all my anger this morning about the hypocrisy they see in the world. Man, if I hear another person this analogy that people are homeless because they're drug and alcohol riddled, I'm just going to punch them in the nose. Because that's the stupidest statement I've ever heard. If you don't want homelessness, build homes. It costs $50 billion. Short of that, that's 1/14 of our military budget. 1/14. That's pretty ridiculous. That's not even what they put into Veterans Affairs. But the government's a big syndicate. It's all corrupt, and that's what we're saying. And that's what we're saying in MGTOW. There's something wrong with this government, that it would make men into slaves, that it would make women into whores. There's something wrong with those kind of people. Something hijacked our government, and we got to figure out what it is. And they're not going to like it when you call them out. But that's okay. That's okay. I don't expect them to like it. And that's all I got to say. I want to keep it short. Go your own way, man. Go your own way, MGTOW. Be a good MGTOW. Don't be a half measure MGTOW. Half measures avail us nothing. That was another topic I wanted to talk about. Half measures avail you nothing. I see the half measure, the half lean MGTOWs. They embarrass us. Half measures avail us nothing. Monk is the only way. And it could be a metaphysical monk or it could be a real monk. It's like a rebel. You can be a metaphysical rebel. Be a metaphysical rebel. Be the metaphysical monk. And don't show all those awful things about them, what's deep down in your soul. Be a metaphysical monk. That's all I got to say today. But I know they won't understand that. They probably never read The Rebel. Or Camus. But you guys have a great day. And I don't want to take too much of your time. I don't expect too many people to listen to this. I expect to offend more people than I inspire and give a great mental thought to. But you guys have a great day, and I hope you're getting out on your pedal bike or your e-bike or your motorcycle and being free. If you don't understand freedom, you don't understand solitude. Being amongst solitude and freedom are synonymous. And thanks a lot for coming around. Thanks a lot for being MGTOW. MGTOW.